Thank you for coming, Eric. I've been wanting to get in touch with you or somebody from your team for quite a while to get an idea about Fly Neo Atelier. Explain to our audiences a little bit about Fly Neo Atelier. What is Fly Neo? And Atelier sounds like a really fancy name as well. How did you choose the name and what is your brand all about?
The name is Neo. It's not Neo Atelier. It's just a matter of URL and ID for internet. But the name of the brand is just Neo. And we put Atelier just to say that we are not a huge Asian workshop. We are just 30 people in the company. So we are more working like, in fact, or a small atelier. And we are also atelier because we are designing everything ourselves and we are producing everything in our workshop in France. So this is why we call it here, but the name of the brand is just Neo. Neo came from the idea that brands are now not only in paragliding, in most of the outdoor sports. Now they are more marketing. They are creating some trends. They are creating designs. They are making colors. They are making some functions. And they send everything to Asia, where real designers who are for harness or bags, who are making the patterns. And then they produce there and they import and sell in Europe. So sometimes I consider that the big brands are more like marketing people or design people, which are really good to sell the products, but they don't have how to say the know how to make with their own hand, like a craftsman. And Neo is something we design, we produce in France, we even ship, and we make the certification. Everything is made inside the same big building where now, where we have 30 people working, and we are in the middle of one of the biggest flying sites in the world, in Annecy, where we live, where we practice. This was the main idea of Neo. And we call it Neo because the main trend now for all the sports outdoor is to go to Asia and then import, with a lot of consequences, of course, for the planet. And if you know the film Matrix, there's a big trend. Yeah. The guy Neo is trying to be out of the trend. So we call it Neo, to be out of the trend. And the second reason of the name Neo is because it's the last letter of the Berber tribe and of the Berber alphabet. This letter is the logo of Neo, means it's a Z of the Berber alphabet, and it means free man, like a free flight, free man, try to be free. This is the reason why we call the brand Neo, because we do the things a little bit another way that it's used to be in the industry.
Oh, love it, man. Thanks for explaining it so well. I think this gives our audience an idea about much more than what's a middleman website. And I think it's very brave to come across as a brand who's based out in Europe and say that, you know what, we're going to challenge the status quo. We're going to try and do all our manufacturing here and yet compete with all the big ones who have a fully structured assembly line and the material production and everything outsourced to a much cheaper and a much more lucrative labor market. Way to go, Eric. More power to you.
It's the main part of the strategy of Neo. Because we have, if you compare to Vietnam to Vietnam, for example, if we consider that most of the backpacks on the outdoor sports market produced mainly in Vietnam, the difference of cost of salary, all charge including between France and Vietnam, are between 6 times to 12 times more expensive in France. Mm. So if we want to pay our sewing lady, we have to put high quality products, high quality materials, a lot of innovation to be able to sell 30 to 50% more expensive our products. So it's a little bit like the kind of the luxurious product industry, the luxe. They need to sell really expensive and to put the best of their knowledge in their product to justify higher price to be able to pay the salary. So we are in a little bit in the same situation. And for me, it's ethic to be able to produce the product in the place where we practice the most activity. It doesn't mean that we don't export to USA or Japan, but most of our market is Germany, France, and Switzerland. And it's important for me to be local. And the objective is not to have a huge factory. We are 30 people now, perhaps we will be 35 or 40 people. But I don't want to grow in terms of numbers. I want to grow in terms of quality and excellence of the products. This is the main philosophy of the brand, to be able to sell more expensive, to pay correctly our employee.
Oh, that's so wonderful to hear, that capitalism is not the driving force behind this. And I think what makes me curious is that I think you guys have been in the industry for quite a while now, maybe 10 years or more, I think.
I created Neo 12 years ago. with the first harness called the string. It was a mountain harness.
Yeah.
Me, I'm flying since 35 years. I was 17. And I'm in the paragliding industry for, more than 30 years. I was 19 years old as a trainee. I went to Korea, and at this time it was Edel, the biggest manufacturer in the world. And I was 19, I stayed there 5 months. And at this moment in my life, I was really young. And I met one guy who was very important in my life. It was Jin Seok-song, the designer and the boss of Jin Gliders. So we tried to work together in 1991. I work for ITV, local brand in Nancy. And then after I work Dell, ITV, and then after I joined Jin when he created Jin Gliders in 1998. So I was always working in the manufacturing of paragliding. And I was always ITV, Edel, ITV, Jin Gliders, Neo were always producing local because Jin is Korean. He's in Asia, so he was producing in Asia, so it was local. And ITV at this time was producing in France, so it was local in the 90s. And then I continue to create my own brand to be also local manufacturer.
Makes sense. And I can imagine the inspiration that you've had. The question that I was curious about is, have you at times had found it challenging to meet the price bracket or satisfy the order books just when it comes to numbers? Because economies of scale is a big thing in the industry. And of course, if you produce in a larger number in a place where it's a lot more cheaper, then you can justify the balance books or the whole investment into your project. So at times, sticking to these principles for any curious manufacturer who's out there listening to this, does it make sense for people to choose this path because of the value it adds on to your life other than money? Or have you at times faced this question that I could have just gone mainstream and tried to compete on the rules that everybody else plays with rather than set my own?
It's a huge challenge, in fact. We have to consider to design our products in a way that we will produce them in France. We have to consider everything, distribution, marketing, all the things to be able to be competitive. And it's a real big challenge we are making since 12 years. At the beginning, we were doing harness and then wings for speed riding. And now we are also doing backpacks for mountaineering, climbing, skiing, and all the sports we are practicing ourselves. The easy way would be to go in Asia and to produce in Asia for sure. And I was able to do it because I've created with Jin a factory in 2001 in China. So I was managing production in China. So it was not so difficult for me to do it. And I have the right contact to do it. But the life is not, I want to challenge myself and to challenge yourself. Then you can do something special. My objective was not to be the biggest manufacturer in the world. I'm not able to do that. My objective was not to have a huge company. I don't need much money. I just want to be able to live and to make my family a living and my employee and family of my employee living out of that by doing something the other are not doing. So it's real challenge because every year it's really hard to survive. We have to invest a lot of money. And we went really step by step because I'm not rich at the beginning. I'm not coming from a rich family. So step by step, every year we have to buy a new machine. And it was a lot of investment, in fact. And now we have around 40 sewing machines in the company. We have a laser cutting machine. We have a machine to cut the webbings. We have many different processes to cut fabrics. And step by step, we built that within the last 12 years. And now we start to be a little bit comfortable. We were renting a very small workshop. And then after we made our own workshop 5 years ago, and last year we increased the size of the workshop double. Now we have a workshop which is 1,000 square meter. But every year, every month, every week, it's a fight to survive because of course in France, we have more tax, more social charge, more expenses. And so the challenge every year, I consider that the challenge is every year new. And I have a chance to have a wife who really understands my passion because sometimes some people tell me why you don't go to produce in Asia and then you will have much more money. I think life is more a consideration of a challenge than to gain a lot of money.
Makes sense. What a way to put it across. And it's very heartening to see a brand like this come out and, as I said earlier, set their own rules and stick to that. But just out of curiosity, Eric, I want to touch upon the topic of manufacturing a little bit because, of course, as you said, paragliding manufacturing is distributed a lot. It's not centralized. In Europe, you have the sky paragliders who make their own thing, make it for everybody else as well. And you have aerodynamics in Sri Lanka. So there are multiple factories spread around different places. And then you see people like you doing your own thing here. And then you see somebody like, I remember Gabriel from Vintech is also doing his own thing in Spain. So there are European-based small factories, and then there are Asia-based big factories. What basically goes behind in trying to have a business like this start out? Search for investors like every other big business does, or is it more or less like a small group of friends coming together and saying that, hey, we have the expertise and we're going to pool in our money and get it done? Like, how does the behind the scenes of paragliders look like for the audience, if you can tell that?
There's three kind of way of manufacturing I consider in the world. The first one is big manufacturers who doesn't have their own brand. So it means you have a lot of brands on the market. They are manufacturing themselves. They are marketing people, they are designers with computer in their office, and they go to fly and then make the certification, but they don't produce. Sometimes they even don't know how to put the thread inside the needle. This is the first thing. And this kind of brands, they are going to big manufacturers in Sri Lanka, in China, in Vietnam, in Thailand. And these big manufacturers are producing for many small brands. Generally, if you want to become a major brand in the paragliding market, brands like Gene Gliders, like Skywalk, like Ozone, like Advance, all these major brands on the market, they have their own production facilities in Asia. It means they produce in their own factory. If you are not producing in your factory, I consider you cannot be a major brand on the market because you need to control the quality. It's super important. Quality and safety of the products. And to be able to make innovation, you need to make your own investments in your machine, in your people, to train your people, and you need to have your own production. And then the third category is brand like me. We can also consider a Nervio who is making wings in Pyrenees, or really small brands who try to do different way of products. I choose the way to be really high quality and to try to make a lot of innovation, but who are making local production and try to succeed with that. So this is a free way. And in the two way, we don't have to mix. People who have their own production are really different than the brands who are working with a supplier, which is another factory than their own factory. And then after, for me, it was just the beginning. I was experiencing the paragliding market and I was distributor for Gene in France already. And then I put all the small money I had to produce a first harness. I went to Himalaya in 2010 to climb, and I was with a friend, and this friend, he was using a climbing harness. You have to put it, you cannot open the harness. Then you have to put it like a pant, let's say. And when you are at 6,000 or 7,000 meters, it's very difficult to wear it. And I was using a black diamond boulder harness for climbing. And this one, you can close it, and then you have the straps, you can close them. And then I was thinking, yeah, perhaps we have to do that with paragliding. And then I create the string harness, which the leg strap you can close directly in the carabiner. Then after many brands copy this concept, I start to sell it for my friends, and they say, why you don't create your brand? And then the idea to make made in France products came because there was a lot of unemployment in France years ago, and I consider that there were a lot of sewing ladies. They were selling clothing in the shops. They didn't have possibility to use their knowledge. Then I decided to create the company like that. I didn't get much money. We went step by step, employ one to get now 30 people. In the middle of that, there was some friends who came, who had a little bit of money, who came to help me a little, but we never had huge investor in the company.
Wow, that's what passion projects are all about, basically. You just have the motivation and then you go ahead and the universe figures out a way to push you towards that.
It's completely stupid to do that.
Love your honesty here, Eric. But quickly, I just want to touch upon the topic that, let's say, what does it take to start a brand? Do you have a certain bit of orders for the wings that you can say that, all right, I'm selling 10 wings or I'm selling 20 wings a year, so I can go to this factory and say, here, take my money, take my design, and give me the raw material? Or do you just start with whatever you have, especially in your case and in other in-house manufacturing cases? Or do you usually go with, as you said, the big brands who are big investors and they have their own quality and own factory? If somebody wants to get into this business, what is the way for them to get started in this direction?
The first thing is to fly and to love to fly. That's the main thing. If you want to do products in paragliding business, you need to fly and to love to fly. I have a friend who have a ski factory just 200 meters from my factory, and he's Olympic champion of skiing. So he likes to ski and he makes his own ski now. And the first thing, I'm not world champion. I'm not whatever in paragliding, but I fly since a long time. It's my passion of my life. So this is the first thing. You need also to have ideas to create new products, to have a good sensibility in the air. So I learned this also with Jean, who gave me this sensitive in the air to be able to trim a harness and to do it correctly. And then after a few friends and a sewing machine, and then this was my way to start. Another possibility is some brands did that is they have experience. They try to put a lot of few around them with a lot of experience. They try to find some money, and they start with big investment in marketing and designing. If they have success at the beginning, generally they go to a big factory in Asia. If they have success after, they need to make their own factory if they want, like I said, to be a major brand. It depends on what you want in the life, in fact. But the first thing is to have the passion for flying. This is the most important. There's a lot of people who came in the paragliding to, I don't know, for ego or for some reasons, or because they thought it will be a big business. It's not a big business. If you don't have the passion for flying, it's difficult.
100%. I understand that a lot of time. What I was trying to understand is why do some brands fail after a certain period of time? Because I've seen that this is a very niche market where you are trying to target some very selected, limited amount of people. But some brands like NL, as you said, massive, has the market, has the cash flow, has the product line already done, just vanishes, goes out. And some other brands, as let's say Axis was pretty big, few other, I cannot keep on taking names, but there are a lot of times you see that brands, they have their upward curve, like when the main owner who's really passionate about it, who's like kind of investing heart and soul into it, and the brand is received very well, and then it starts going down. So is it because all of these businesses are mostly passion-based and they are not run in a professional business way? Or what exactly is the reason why we see brands coming and going, and some of them, or very few, actually stay for long?
Because like I said, it's mainly based on the passion, and probably compared to other business. On other business, when it's not based on the passion, you can sell it and find professional people to continue the story. Company in the world are mainly a human process with some one man or several months behind, and sometimes they can be tired or they can be less innovative. It's life. It's like this. We are not always at the top in sports, in competitions. A world champion is not a world champion for 30 years. So it's a little bit same. So the most difficult for a top leader brand is not to become the first one on the market, is to stay. And this is super difficult. And behind the paragliding brands, you have some very important men who are there. There are few. I would say the guy I know very well is Jean. Jean is a fantastic designer. He's a fantastic person. But then you need to stay. He was at the top and he is still in the main brand, but he was the number one. And to stay, it's super difficult because competitors try to gain. In other business, you sell your business and some people are coming with a new motivation. But in paragliding, it's a matter of passion. And there's not a lot of people in the world who are passionate for paragliding. So you need to find that. And probably the people who have the passion, they don't have also I know that Jean is not the best guy in business. He's a super designer, but he's not the best guy in business. So it's difficult on a very long way to be stable. And the second reason is probably the people in paragliding, they think too much about the brand, about the product, the product. And they always say, if I launch two liners, ENC, or if I launch this harness, or if I launch that, next year will be good. So they think a lot about the product. And they don't think enough about the brand. And the best example, and probably one of the best success in the paragliding market, is Advance. Advance is taking care of, they just launched a ANC and it's not a two-liner. But Advance is the most stable brand in the last 20 years in the industry because they first think about the brand and the value of the brand. So probably it's a matter of business and the vision you have for your company. We have people who are creative, who are passionate for paragliding. It's a wonderful history. You imagine we were born exactly at the time when it was possible to fly. If we born 100 years ago, we cannot fly. It's magic. We are super lucky. And these people have a passion. And I met a lot of designers in my paragliding life when I was young in the 90s or 20 years ago. And then they all have passion, probably less business way. And the guy who have a good business way, they have less passion. So it's not the business where you will earn the most money. So they don't say also. This
I
is
think
the way
that's,
I would say it's also life is like this, huh? Finally.
yeah, I think this is one thing that I've commonly seen with a lot of creative people. Let's say artisans, musicians, a lot of them who are trying to put their heart and soul into what they're making are least bothered in trying to have a structured marketing plan or coming up with a commercial game where they can try and make money out of it. They're like, they want to invest their heart and soul into creating rather than selling it. What I was wondering is, Eric, when a new consumer, let's say somebody who's getting into paragliding or somebody who has been in there for a few years to know the brands and all their technologies and everything behind it, investing money is not easy because paragliding isn't the cheapest. It still requires you to come out with at least 2,000-3,000 minimum if you want to own a pre-owned kit, or at least 4,000-5,000 minimum if you want to have a good brand new performance level kits. So, as a customer, when you go out and put your money on some brand's trust, choosing a brand is a very personal choice, of course, but do you have any idea like how people can prioritize choosing their brands? Because legacy factor, of course, helps, but as you said, that legacy factor is built up upon a certain bit of history, but then you have to maintain that history. And seeing the early decline of a brand will not be that visible. Let's say if a brand has been innovative for 20 years and is not innovating anymore for the past 5 years, you still can go out and give your money and invest in something that is not as meaningful. When it comes to decision making as a customer, what should people really look out for to spend their hard-earned money in the most efficient manner in this industry?
I think the first thing is, as you said, paragliding is expensive sport. If you fly with airplane, it's more expensive. There's other sports who are more expensive than paragliding. Finally, ski is also expensive. If you don't go ski touring and you go to buy your ski ticket, ski pass every day, it's also expensive. But paragliding for sure is expensive. But I would advise a new beginner on the market, don't choose the cheapest brand. Because if they are cheap, there's some reason. And the second thing is, with the highest brand, with the highest price, you have a second-hand market. For example, if you take our pod harness for lightweight harness, it's a harness that Max Pinot and Tim Alonji were using in the last Red Bull X Alps. This harness is one of the most expensive light pod harness. But after 3 or 4 years using it, you can still sell it 900 or 1,000 euro on the second-hand market easily. It means the harness is cost 2,000 euro at the beginning, but after 3 or 4 years, you can still sell it at 50% of the price or 60% discount of the price. But if you take a harness which is very fragile with a cheap brand, it will go to rubbish. So in fact, the money you invest, you will lose everything. So perhaps you will buy it 1,500 or 1,300, but finally you cannot resell it. And now what we can see with the high brands, the brand which are the top of the market or top quality or small, what you do is you can sell it second hand. So it's sometimes better to buy a second hand market of a top brand, of a good brand, than to buy a cheap brand, which we will not be able to sell. This is the first thing. The second thing is try and go to a dealer, professional dealers, and tell them, I want to fly this harness, I want to fly this wing, and if you feel good with your wing or with your harness, then you can buy it. Try equipments, try different things, and speak with other people. Be careful with the forum. There's bullshit on the forum. But yeah, go to see professional people, instructors, discuss with them, and go to see on the landing some guys who are using a harness or a wing that you would like to fly. And also test yourself. Even beginners can test themselves. They can test beginner wings and say, I prefer this one or I prefer this one. And then if you are sensitive for that, just try to see who is behind the company, how the company is producing, if they are their own factory, and try to understand that. But don't go to the cheapest way, that's for sure. Even with rescue parachute, especially with rescue parachute, especially with harness. And then, for example, I'm designer of harness, so this is the part I know the most. You can see that if you go to fly with different kind of harness, you will see that a lot of different stability, a lot of different geometry. And this is the basement of a harness. Harness is not only a fairing, it's also a geometry behind, and it's also comfort, and it's stability, and it's also performance. So when you go to try few different brands of harness, you will see that sometimes you can have a unstable harness, which is not able to turn nicely. and you can have stable harness, which are able to turn very nicely. So try and test your gear you want to buy.
Wow. Love the way you put it, man. I think this is nothing but pure gold. Anybody who wants to re-listen to what they said, just hit the rewind button on Spotify or wherever you get your podcast. This was nothing but pure magic coming out of you for advice on how to buy it. But Eric, you mentioned not to buy a substandard reserve parachute. Let's say round reserve or Rogalos, they have very standard design that has stayed the same for years in a row. And they don't really require any specific expertise in sewing them together or any special materials that should be there. So I'm just wondering why can't you go in for the cheapest reserve, like somebody who is merging economies of scale, who's buying the raw material in a lot, in a quantity, and which has got set guidelines and a set standard for manufacturing. Where will that make a difference when it comes?
But go to talk with SIV instructors. They will tell you that there are some rescue which are really good and some rescue which are really bad. And it's not a matter of manufacturing also, it's also a matter of design. And there was a Apex geometry rescue in the past, and now we have square or planar rescue. And there's always a matter of who will be the lightest, what will be the area, what will be the weight range, what is the main objective of a rescue. Is it opening time? Is it sink rate? Is it stability? Is it the way you connect it to harness? How you connect it to the harness? How the problem of the mirror effect, the position when you land? There's a lot of matter about that. Rescue is not only a rescue, it's also a rescue plus a harness. That's the first thing I want to say. But also some rescue are really good and some rescue are not good. And what I can see, sorry again, but what I can see from the market, and when I discuss with SIV instructors, with dealers and everything, that the biggest brand, again, the biggest brand or the most famous brand, not only the biggest in number, but also the most famous brand, generally have the best rescue. I don't really trust you. You can go to some factory and you can buy a rescue and put your sticker on it, your logo on it. But I don't really trust that. I prefer to go in the manufacturer who develop his own way with his own, because designing a product is not only to say, I design and sell it. It's also what I want to do with the product. Who will use my product? Which way will use it? Where does it fly? All these things. And I prefer to go to a manufacturer who say, we did this product in this way, and then it designed this way, than to go to a manufacturer who buy a rescue which is already designed and just put.
I cannot understand that if round rescue or Rogallo, let's take the example of Rogallo, right? It has had a design since 1970s or something that does not change. So if you are supposed to manufacture it according to certain guidelines, that this should be the span length, this is how the risers should look, this is how strong the lines should be, can you still have different characteristics based on, what you have manufactured in a different factory? Or is it like, are all Rogallos the same, but just a different brand name on top of that? Because let's say choosing the material and everything are very small things. So when the design is so standardized, how can the quality be so different is what I was asking.
The market is changing. 20 years ago, we were flying with rescue, which were free. Now we are flying with rescue, which are between 700 and 800 grams to 1.5 kilo or 2 kilo. So to get this result, we need to change the materials. For example, on rescue, we were using polyester lines for a long time. Now we are using Dyneema lines most of the time. The fabric need to be thinner and need to be lighter, and the load test is still the same in the last EN certification. Then for that, you will use different materials. And it's like a paraglider. You don't take a standard design and then just change the material. When you change the material, you have to adapt the design. This is the first thing. And then in a Rogallo, I'm not specialist with Rogallo. Me, I prefer square rescue or round rescue. But even on a square rescue, you can have different kind of patterns. You can have different kind of shapes. Trim your apex line for apex rescue in a different way. You can put different kinds of line. You can fold it in a different way. There's a lot of possibilities. And this is all sometimes very small trimming makes the difference. Difference of tension in the panels, difference of lines, difference of many things. And for that, you need to have a good R&D team, a good designer, or most of the time several designers, good test pilot, and then to have enough money and power to be able to develop that. This is a brand like Neo. This is why we are not doing rescue and we are not doing wings. First, it will not be profitable to produce in France. We are just doing rucksack and harness. And it's a huge work of development. We are 5 people in R&D in Neo. So it's a big investment of development. So some of the brands just go to pick up one rescue in one manufacturer, one wing in this manufacturer, one harness in this manufacturer. They don't do specific work, design work. They just change the colors, put a pocket here and a P system here.
Yeah.
But generally, the concept is not water pipe, pocket, and P system. It's design, aerodynamic. It's a basement with geometry. It's a base of the harness for comfort, webbings and buckles to be strong enough. This is the basement of. And like I tell you since the beginning of this conversation, is generally you need R&D to make a real proper job. And even in rescue, it's not completely standard. Even I'm not specialist with Rogallo, but I think Rogallo is not completely standard. When you come from a normal Rogallo fabric rescue to a light one, you need to adapt things for sure.
It's very interesting. I love the way you explain it. We should emphasize more on choosing gear rather than just sticking with marketing. While we are talking about products, Eric, I see Neo's inventory has grown a lot. I've followed your website on and off for quite a few years. You were heavily into speed riding wings in the beginning. But now when I look at your product range, it is basically you have a whole lot of diversification where harnesses like backpacks, protectors, and accessories. These are 3 very different manufacturing requirements and markets. How did you decide to diversify into this, and what was the decision making like when you started to introduce more innovation and more products in your inventory? What was the thought process behind that?
It looks like we diversify, but in fact we didn't diversify. It's very simple. We are craftsmen, so we use our hands and our machine to make products. And our specialty is to be able to produce with thin fabric, and very thick. Paragliding harness, you need to be able to sew very thick webbings and very thick materials, but you are also very thin materials like clothing. We don't do clothing, but it's similar. This is our specialty. This is where we are good. And when we make harness and backpacks, this is what you need to be able to sew thin and to sew thick. We are manufacturing ourselves. We specialize in this way. We are specialists and the only workshop in France able to do that in terms of production. So we just decide to not make paragliders or rescue parachute because it's not where we are the best. So we didn't diversify so much. We just came back to do what we are the best and what we are able to do with our machine and our hands.
I'm curious about the helmet part because we have a topic with Icaro 2000. We have an episode with Icaro 2000 that I just finished recording a few days ago, and that is going to be uploaded very soon. Christian, who happens to be the hang gliding legend, spoke in length about what goes behind helmet manufacturing, designing, certification, and everything. You are one of the few, a handful of brands which have diversified into making their own helmet. So how did that come into the picture, and what was that journey? If you can briefly talk about that before I move on to other technologies.
This is the only product we don't manufacture ourselves.
Okay.
The only product of the Neo range we don't manufacture in France. Because technically it's difficult to find in France a manufacturer able to do such a harness. We found a really good manufacturer, a very technical one, where we have a good relationship and with who we can work. My experience is good in textile and manufacturing and backpacks. I'm not the specialist of helmets, but there was a lack on the market of a good helmet. There was a lot of brands coming in and out of the market. It was difficult for the distribution system for the dealer to have something stable. So we just decided to make one helmet, fits for paragliding and also certified for ski, climbing and ski touring. And we decided to make it in partnership with this manufacturer. ABS shell to be really strong. And then we find the right manufacturer to do it, but it's out of France. We are transparent. In France, we didn't find the right manufacturer to make the helmet like we wanted. So we found a technical partner able to do it for us. And then we worked 2 years on the development of this helmet, and we launched this helmet. Now we sell it. We have also few projects for paragliding helmet in the future. It will be one model more, perhaps. But we are not becoming a paragliding manufacturer, and I will not install in France a factory for manufacturing because I'm not specialist for that.
Oh, love your take on that, man. I think it's so nice to see somebody saying that money is not a priority, but adding value to a brand in people's life is. While talking about collaborations, one thing that I'm sure not just me, but a lot of people in paragliding community have been curious about is Korea, man, because I was reading on your webpage that you and Korea have go way back. Like you've been working with them since 2014. That's almost like a decade from now. And that you've gone a lot back and forth about this revolutionary new technology that was adapted with Jin, and a few other brands got curious about it as well. So let's talk a little bit about Korea and you, and if you can throw some light on this protector, which is promising, but also being questioned a lot of times in the industry.
Well, when I start my brand of harness, I was thinking about protection. The protection is not so difficult to engineer. But to manufacture in France, it's not so easy because of the labor cost. And then I was starting to think about something inflatable, something about different things. And then one guy very important in Neo came in the company. He was training. He was 20 years old, and it was Matthias, who is still working with me. He's the chief of the production in Neo, and he's the designer of harness with me in the company. And Matthias came with this idea. He was training in sports product development school. And then he came with this idea and told me, hey, look, there's a Choroid, and why not to go to them and to... So with Matthias, we went together to see Choroid. They were interesting about our position. And we were already innovating in terms of geometry of harness and in the paragliding, speed riding. And they said, yeah, we don't want to work with the biggest brand, but we want to work with a brand which is close and innovating and has a good image. Then they start to work with us, and we made an exclusive contract for worldwide paragliding market. And then it took 3 years, something like that, to find the right way to launch the first Choroid protection. And so it took a lot of time. Matthias became employee of the company, and now he's managing the company with me. So it's also a good human success. And then step by step, we develop new generation. And next month, we will launch a new generation of Choroid, which is more flexible with a sponge on it, and also with a little bit different looking, with a round shape to be able to fit the new aerodynamic harness. What was interesting for Matthias and me at the beginning is the way that Choroid absorb the impact of the way the material.
Crash.
Because all the protection we had since a long time in the paragliding, mousse, airbag, or now inflatable, is just you have a ribbon. In this ribbon, the energy goes back to your spine. And when you crash the material, like in a car now, they don't try to make the hardest car when they make the crash test. They try to structure which deform and absorb by the noise, by the heat, and by the destruction of the material. It absorbs the energy. Then this energy is not like a rebound with the material which are elasticity. 3D, the mousse is elastic, the air is elastic, the plastic or 3D printing things are elastic. No, the Choroid, the tube, polymer tube, which crash, and this takes the energy out. And it was the main thing for us, which was really interesting. It was interesting because it's more safe per light, and it's more compact, only 7 or 8 centimeters. So this is how we start to work with Choroid. We have fantastic engineers, and we start to work in collaboration, and we continue. Where I like is they are a big company now, but they still continue to be faithful to us. We still continue to innovate, and it's really nice.
I want to talk a little bit about the working of Choroid, because a few crashes, I'm pretty sure a lot of people have seen them in paragliding, where you see the blocks of Choroid protector, the green blocks, they just get twisted upon impact. So what really causes them to switch away from their place and stay rigid and not really have the crash being fully taken care of or fully absorbed to the best way possible? How does that...
The angle of...
Let's say you look at a protector in Choroid where these blocks are included with foam or some material to keep them in place. Then upon impact, we have seen through some photographs which are being shared online or something, that the blocks twist out of place. Instead of crumpling, they're just twisted in that place. So I'm just wondering, what was that all about, and has that been solved, or how is that being looked at from a manufacturer's perspective?
But the main thing is, the first thing we thought when we started development is to put a full block of Choroid, but it was not good in terms of impact. If you want to have a good absorption of impact with the Choroid, you should crash to 70-80% of the Choroid if you have a really big impact. If you put too much Choroid, in fact, you crash only 10 or 20%. So absorption of impact wasn't not enough. So we decided to go with blocks of choroid. But you are right, we need to keep the choroid vertical as much as we can when we crash. So it was a long test, 3 years of test to find the right mousse, the right sponge material, and the right shape to fit the certification. When you crash, that the choroid doesn't twist to the side, then there's still an absorption of impact, but it will not be enough. And the second thing is you need to find the right balance between the choroid and the sponge. If you have too much sponge, it's not necessary. If you have too much, you need to crush a lot. So it was a big deal to find the best way. Step by step, each time we change the percentage of choroid on protection. Depends also what you do, if it's a long protection or a short protection. Step by step, we understand more about the choroid, and we also found that to put a round shape under the protection, it also gives a better result if you don't crash exactly vertical, if you crash it on the side. So step by step, we are improving this technology.
That makes sense. Yeah, no, you do. But like, I'm just curious. Was it like in the beginning? Let's say this happens with any new technology, right? When you come out with a new technology, it has its own laboratory applications where you learn some dynamics of it, and then it has its own real world applications where it's a whole different product. So was there? I mean, there was a time in paragliding community when chorioid was just being questioned a lot for not absorbing the side impacts that well, and where the blocks of chorioid were twisting and making them, I wouldn't say more dangerous, but at least they were not serving the purpose in crashes. So has that time gone, and has chorioid technology reached a point where it is absorbing impact from all directions as possible, or is the R&D still going on where foam and other technologies are still a bit more reliable?
Impact on the paragliding harness is not only about choroid. Okay. We cannot put choroid or mousse or air all around us. So there's a limitation of angle of attack. There's a way to limit it. The problem with the choroid is you can see what's happened when you crash. All the other protection you cannot see. You don't know what's happened with a removable airbag under a string harness. When you crash, most of the time, the airbag is going away and is not efficient at all. But you cannot see it with your eyes after. With a mousse, you cannot see if the mousse was good or not. With an airbag, you cannot see. But with the choroid, you can see what's happened. And then the people can talk about it. But with the other protection, they don't talk because there's no proof. Some people will say it's easy for Eric to say like this, but since we start to talk 30 minutes ago or 40 minutes ago, I'm transparent. I'm not a guy who is telling bullshit. It's just the fact that the people can talk about it because they can see. We had some guys who said, my choroid didn't work because it's not crashed. And then we received some video and the guy didn't fall on the choroid. He fell on his feet.
Makes sense.
But if he were falling with a mousse.
What's a mousse?
With a sponge, with a classic.
Sponge.
Sponge, yeah.
Foam protector.
Yeah. If he was falling with that, he cannot see because it will stay same effects, except if you have a huge impact and it will explode. Yeah. But with the choroid, he say, my choroid didn't crash, so it didn't work. No, you didn't fall on the choroid.
That's very interesting.
Some people say, it didn't fall, it didn't work. Yeah, because you fall too much on the side, but another protector will not protect you also. So it's not a problem of technology or safety. It's a problem of perception of the people. On the choroid, they are able to say, it's working or not working, but on an airbag or another protector, there's no problem.
I'm just curious, when it comes to twisting of the blocks, does that have any explanation? Like, why do blocks get out of their place and get twisted in the foam where they were? Or like, how did that happen, and how have you guys fixed that?
Compared to the first protection before, we improved a lot this problem. And now also on the big protection, we will put a mousse under a sponge, very soft, which will help also to avoid the twisting. For sure, the twisting is if you are really on the side, but it will be same with whatever protection. All the mass of air or the mass of sponge or the mass of whatever will slide away. So it's exactly the same thing. And we made the harness to the EN certification, 50 kilo, 163 centimeter, falling down with a certain speed. And what we say to the people is when you see that the sponge around your choroids is starting to be broken after impact, it means you need to change your protection. like you need to change your helmet when you fall in ski or whatever. It's
Yeah.
the same principle. But we try to improve that. But generally, what we receive when the people crash, when they send us back their choroid, most of the time there's a part which is crashed. Sometimes 100%, sometimes 80%, but there's always a part which is crashed.
So it's just like helmet. You have to try and make it. But when I see that you guys are fusing materials time to come, you're bringing in new technology and embracing it with the older one and trying to make it a bit more solid protection. I want to quickly talk about this brand new protector that Nivea launched, because this just came into my curiosity. Their designers were on the show as well, and they talked very in depth about origami. Origami and choreo seem to be a similar concept where they're both lightweight, they both offer impact protection and are streamlined, reducing drag. With choreo's impact protection and origami's flexibility and all the innovation that lies in the future, are we looking at combining these technologies to make it even better? Do you see these both revolutionized technologies working together in time to come?
We tried some years ago to develop something like origami, and origami is completely different than choroid. It looks same, but it's completely different. We tried 3D printing and to try to do what we can. The first thing is origami doesn't crash. Origami is elastic. It's a 3D printing. So when you crash, like I explained before, what I know from origami is it will come back to the original shape. It means it's like sponge, like air. It's elastic, so you have a rebound. I don't really understand how it can absorb the energy like the choroid is doing. The second thing is origami is almost double weight than the choroid. For the same thickness of protection, choroid will be 200 to 400 grams and will be 800 grams. It's quite difficult to compare. For me, it's different concept. And the way choroid is working, it's because it's crashing. And that's very important point. The only similar way is that in terms of thickness, for sure, we are reducing the thickness and we are reducing the drag. This is something we are doing since Neo since a long time. And this is why Gene Gliders use it for Journey Race 4, Journey Race 5. This is why also Ozone is using it for the submarine. This is why also Advance were using it for the pilots of X-Alps. It was to reduce the drag, because it's good to put a good long fairing, but if you reduce the drag, it's also better. So this is between origami and choroid, for sure. This is the same result. And in terms of impact, I'm sorry to say that we have better impact because we are around between 30, without rescue, between 30, 31, 32 G, 35 maximum, but they are more close to 45 or 50. So I have nothing against origami, but you ask me the questions and I...
No, I love your honesty, Eric, and please don't feel sorry to speak the truth, man. Like the industry and the audience loves listening to people like you. So, yeah, as I said in the beginning of the show, more power to you, man. Love the way you bring out these things. As we're reaching the end of the show, I quickly want to touch upon the topic of reducing the drag before we run out of time here. When you go all these time, while we have seen that, all right, prone position is, I don't know if it's called prone position, but like basically lying down position is better than sitting position in harnesses. And we try to make as much drag reduction as possible. But then I see something as big as submarine coming into the market and completely taking away, keeping things smaller and thinner, because submarine is a whole big casing around it. And the size of the harness is substantially larger than any other harness that we have seen in the market. Let's say XR7 or Genie Race 5 or 4, maybe, whatever it was, like the pod harnesses that were existing even from French manufacturers, even from all the big ones, were all about very thin, single structure pod harness with a fairing. But Submarine comes in and designs a whole inflatable structure which is bigger in surface area. So when we have surface area not being a problem for drag, why can't we add bigger, thicker protectors around us in these massive harnesses that we are starting to fly now to make it even more safer? Like, why is the thinking or the R&D not going in that direction?
It's just a problem of aerodynamics. As we develop inflatable harness in this way, what I have to say basically about it is Ozone did a wonderful job. It's wonderful what they did when they created this harness. The first thing is try to find the best aerodynamic shape. And the second thing, they separate the body of the harness with the outshell. Then most of the time you have the perfect shape of the harness and you gain a lot of stability and not much wrinkles. The second thing is if you have a good basis with a good way to manage the U-axis, it's improving even the U-axis and all the way in transition in terms of performance. And then they choose the best shape. And to choose the best shape, you need to be really with a small segment of aerodynamic segment, which is facing the wing, should be the smallest one. This is why you need such a material like choroid to be smaller. And then they just choose the shape, which is the best.
The flexibility of the fairing, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, how do you call like a boat?
The rudder. The rudder which keeps it stable.
Which we did on our prototype. It's a wonderful concept. Aerodynamic is not only the harness. A paraglider is a wing, lines, and a body with arms, head, and a harness. If you start to put bigger protection, you will have to increase the size of the circle around the pilot, the frontal
surface area
of the wing. And then we lose the effect of this aerodynamic effect because you will need to have a longer harness. And then it's not practical anymore. And we are not sailplane. We are still paraglider on a backpack. You need to have protection. And I think the problem is not, I think there's compared to a fairing on a harness, the gain of performance is huge. There's a really huge difference. Fairing, normal harness to fairing, there's a gap, but the gap is small compared to the gap we gain with a harness like submarine. So I think the problem is now, I remember 20 years ago when we start to have pod harness, except Richard Gallo in the 90s, but when we start to have pod harness, the pilots say it's only for competition, it will never go, it's dangerous. It's like when we start to fly acro in the 90s, some people say, it's dangerous, it will kill the sports. This is the wrong way to think. All innovation that can be interesting. We have to be open. And we were open to acro, and acro helps the safety in paragliding. In fact, people thinking it's too dangerous, it will kill the sports. No, acro was helping the safety. And I'm working every day with a guy like Tim Alonghi, who for me is the best ever pilot with the nicest style, the best style. And Tim is a wonderful pilot and help us every day to improve the quality of the safety of our products. So we don't have to go against the revolution. And this kind of inflatable harness, probably it's our job designers. It's the work of engineers who are working on that to learn about it, and step by step, perhaps it will come to the normal pilots, or perhaps not. It will stay only to the best pilots. But the problem is, if now we say we increase the size of the protector for what? To gain more protection. If you increase the size of the choroid, you will not gain more protection. Perhaps you will lose the efficiency of the back protector. If you put a 20 centimeter back protector, you will not have a better result than an 8 or 9 or 7 centimeter. Like I said, you need to crash 80% to have the best result. If with a 20%, you will not crash 80%. So first, you don't gain safety. Okay? Of course, you can put inflatable, but inflatable to reach the certification, you need to be 22 centimeter. Then you will need to increase the circle around the pilot. And then the pilot will have the harness here at the top of the head. No, you need the harness not so high. So obviously, you cannot increase the size to increase safety, and it will not be useful. You need something easy to use, which is practical, not too hot, not you spend 20 minutes to install it. And this is the job of our job designers, to be able to propose a product in the future to the public, which will be good to fly with safety. For the moment, it's only top pilots. And for the moment, in terms of visibility, it's not also the best. It's good for these top pilots, but it's not good for the normal pilots. Then we need to improve. It will take 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. I don't know. It's a new adventure. This is why we like paragliding and designing products in paragliding. There was a young aerodynamic engineer who was working for 8 months for this project with Salome, who is also engineer. At the end of the training, Julien, it was his name, Julien explained us that it's only for top pilots. I said, yes, for the moment. But in the future, perhaps not. If I remember 20 years ago with the pod harness, it was only for top pilots. And now you can see a lot of pilots because it's first more comfortable. You can be warm. And it's nice to fly on a long cross-country flight. We don't speak about aerodynamic. Just for that, it's interesting, this concept. Just let it go and we will see what's happened and what the manufacturer and designers are able to create with this new technology. It's a wonderful tool.
I love it, man. Love. You've basically answered 10 other questions I was going to ask you with this beautiful description. But while we are talking about this submarine style, I saw Maxime flying it and a few other new sponsored pilots flying this all white, beautifully designed submarine style harness from you guys. So I'm wondering, submarine shape has a very different appearance outlook from Ozone, from Jin, or from Nearbirds, and then yours is coming out. Woody Valley is bringing its famously called anti-submarine rocket very soon, which is most likely to come on the show as well. Everybody's trying to achieve the same motive of reducing drag. Then why do we see them looking so differently from others? Because let's say paragliders, everybody wants to achieve less drag and the most performance. So all the triple C wings look the same. But when it comes to harnesses, submarine harnesses are starting to look very different from each other already. So what is the difference in size, different in shape, and how can consumers going out to buy this figure out which shape is better or which shape is doing less drag, like less drag? Because to us, we do not have the technical know-how or expertise that you have. How does the decision-making come from a consumer's point of view when he looks visually at these appearances?
First, what I want to say in paragliding design, it's not always the same. It's very different. Its designer has his secret, and you cannot see it when you watch the glider in the air. But for sure, there's a lot of parameters when you design a wing, which can make a big difference. And these parameters, if you are not in front of the computer with all the files, you cannot see it. For example, when you speak about profile, nobody can see a profile. Even a designer, when he sees a wing, he doesn't know which profile the designer of this wing use, because the profile, if you watch from, you cannot see it. You cannot see top and bottom in the same way. You have the tips and everything is hidden. Paragliding is much more different than what we think. For us, if I speak about the development of our Pro model for Team and Max, we only concentrate on the best performance and the best aerodynamic. It was the only way. We try more than 80 shapes. And not prototypes 80 shapes. We don't have the money for that. But try to simulate in a computer way more than 80 shapes. And we finalize our shape in the best way to be the best aerodynamic. And the harness we developed, the Pro model, is 1.5 kilo. It's generally for I Can Fly competition. But it was a project of performance. It was not only for I Can Fly, it was a general project of performance, which is not finished yet. The other advantage we had is in Neo, since 10 years, we have a very good geometry base of harness and base of harness, which is super stable, nice to fly, nice to turn. We have a big experience with the suspender on the stay up in I Can Fly competition. Team and Max knows really well the geometry of the stay up. So the basement of our harness, I always consider that the basement of the harness is the geometry. Geometry is super important. There's some manufacturers, they even don't fly with their harness when they design a harness. To make geometry like a stay up or suspender, we spend 200 hours in the air. It was a long way to 200 or 300 hours in the air to reach this objective. So our basement harness were really good. Then we had to put this shape, and the shape of outside the objective was only the performance. And so when you have a guy like, I can tell you, when you have a guy like Maxime Pinot as an ambassador of the brand, you don't discuss much about performance. He knows better than anybody else what is performance on a paraglider.
I agree. And I think having Maxime as a part of your team does tell a lot about your brand. It is some brand where you can try and do a little bit of research and figure out how to place your trust in it. While we are talking about the stand-up protection, I've seen you have an open patent for the stand-up rescue system.
Yep.
Can you tell our audiences a little bit about stand-up rescue? What is it? How can they have that in their paragliding in a better way than the conventional rescue, which leaves you hanging?
First thing is you can install whatever rescue on it. Rogal, Apex, Square Rescue, or Planar Rescue, whatever. You can install whatever you want. I started to make the development of stand-up system. It was a discussion with Marc Boyer, one of the most experienced test pilot in French Federation for testing the certification. He's also very experienced SIV pilot, well known in France pilot, and he was in the French team long time ago, and he's really expert in safety and performance in paragliding. And he's a very good friend. When we had a discussion, when he made SIV, if the pilot has no time to pack his wing in the air, then you will have a mirror effect. When you have the shoulder strap, the rescue attached on the shoulder, pulling backward, and if you have the wing attached on the main points pulling forward, you will fall on your back. And
the downplaning is quite risky. I have come under downplaning once, the only time that I deployed. I honestly wish I had either removable carabiners or something, because that position is not the most comfortable position to hit the impact or anything like that.
Everybody is studying in paragliding. Personally, I don't like when there's a big rule and everybody follows the rule without thinking if the rule is correct. But it's the same in our world these days. We put some rules, people follow the rules, but they don't know if the rule is correct or not. I don't say that I'm out of the law. Not a guy like this. I follow the law if the law is correct. So it's my own common sense. And then when there's a rule in paragliding, I like to see if the rule is correct. For example, in stability of harness, everybody say, you need to have high hanging point. No, not all the time. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It's probably 20% of the factor of the stability of our harness. There's many other factors, especially the center of gravity. So there's generally in activities like paragliding, there's people who have big rules and they follow these rules and they don't think if one day they checked if the rule is correct. Everybody about the rescue was thinking that shoulder attachment is the best because you stand up. Yeah, but you stand up, you cannot move anymore. You cannot control your rescue. You cannot turn. You can get stronger here, like it happens to Tim Alonji. It can happen many things. Then I study and I said, it's stupid, this rule to have only on shoulder strap. Everybody says that, so everybody follow like chips. And I was thinking, let's do a system because most of the pilots are opening their rescue really low, around 150, 100 meter, even 50 meter above the ground. So it's quite low to recover a wing. So generally, most of them are in a mirror effect. We should have a system where the mirror effect will be, at least for the position of the pilot, the best. I put in the same place the rescue on the wing, and then I create a system which stand up the pilot. He will sit in a sitting position very straight. And then if he wants to put his legs first, he can. If he wants to keep his legs inside the harness, it's super safe. And it's also easier to recover your wing, to stall your wing and to recover your wing to be in the correct position. No mirror effect. You can grab your risers to turn yourself. If a house is coming in front of you or a tree or something like that, then you can put back protection in front. And all these things make that the experience of making rescue is much more safe and much more comfortable than to the pilot.
Brings back memories of shark nose invention by Ozone, where they brought out this seemingly revolutionary technology on the market, and then people eventually started copying it because they had an open patent. So are we looking at this from Neo also being widely adopted? How's the market response so far? Have people been curious? It is definitely beneficial. I don't see any drawbacks. How does it look so far with this being adopted in the market?
Well, first, I open it because safety and paragliding is my passion. If I can bring safety to my passion, need to be open. I put a patent to show people that it's an important step in terms of safety. If you don't put a patent, nobody see it. Yeah. So we put a patent and then we said it's open for somebody who wants to use it. They just have manufacturer wants to use it, they just have to contact us and we will help them to put it on their harness because it's not just you add a kit. It's something you need to design the harness with the system inside. It will take time because it's not a concept which is super easy to understand. So it will take time. Step by step, we launched it less than 1 year ago. We put the patent 2 years ago, sorry. We launched the harness less than 1 year ago. Step by step, people are thinking about it, discussing, and some people have this harness, the suspender, and they start to use it in SIV, and then the instructors start to see the real effect. It will take time to bring that. And we already think about the next generation of harness to improve it and to do it in a different way. So all this kind of technology, they are not visible first. So it's not so easy. You need to explain. It's quite technical. So it needs a lot of time for the people, for the brain of the people to get used of it. And then it's not a technology which makes, I don't know, you don't increase free in your glide ratio or you don't very visible, in fact.
Yeah.
But step by step, we are more people interesting and it's a good argument. But for me, what is important is when I sell products, I try to give the best of myself and my R&D team in the product because I'm not alone. I have a R&D team with me. And philosophy of Neo is to give the best of the product in each of our harness or rucksack or backpacks. And then if I consider I can give a better safety, I put it after if the people follow or don't like. Yeah, I listen, but the most important for me is to give the best in each product.
I think it's very visible in your philosophy and the way you guys have brought it out. As we are close to wrapping up, Eric, there are two last topics that I want to touch about. The first one we can take as is world's safest automatic aluminum carabiner mentioned on your website. I think this is an outcome of your collaboration with Austrialpin and Austrialpin Rocket. What is this about, and why does it get the tag of being one of the most innovative and safest in the world on your website? How is it different from what's available on the market?
10 years ago, during the development of String 2, we had some issue with the carabiners when we made the test. Then we stopped to study and we went to university in Annecy. We specialized in metal and materials. And we stopped to make some tests. And the engineer told us that the main problem with aluminium is fatigue.
Yeah.
Then we stopped to study about it and we discover we made a test with the carabiner we were using. And 85,000 times, after 80 times 1,000 cycles, the carabiner broke. We were surprised. And then we start to look around and we saw that I knew that in 2001, Austrialpin had got a problem like that, not in the air, but on the ground. Then I went there, visit them and said, we need to make something more safe. And then they told me we need to increase the size from 8mm cylinder at the beginning of the carabiner. When we manufacture it, we will pass to 10mm. And then we need to block the problem of fatigue with a system, they call it autolock. Then you can go on our website to see exactly the drawing. And in addition of that, we saw also that the new harness, the frontal rescue for when you have I can fly, or size of the riser decrease. There was many things around the shape of the carabiner, which makes it more fragile. If you take a square carabiner, aluminum carabiner, and put a thin webbing for the harness and thin webbing for the riser, it will be diagonal in the air. And we made some tests and discovered that you will lose 70% of the efficiency of the strength of the carabiner, which is huge. Yeah. Then we decided to make a carabiner which has the right shape with the right finger, opening finger of the carabiner, and then with a system who blocks the fatigue. This is why we developed a carabiner together with the Austrian brand Austrialpin. We had the exclusivity for the first 2 or 3 years of selling, and then we opened it to the market and everybody can use it.
That's good because
it's crazy in paragliding. It's the only thing in paragliding which is not certified in terms of strength. Harness, rescue, spreader bars, gliders, everything is certified except the carabiner. I don't know. So you are climbing carabiners who are certified. So we make this certification, but in fact, climbing they don't have fatigue effect. Because there's no tension, they just fall. But to prevent this risk of breaking the carabiners because of fatigue, there's no certification. And actually, there's no certification for the carabiner. This is why we decided in Neo to try to manufacture the best, we call it the most safe carabiner. And it's a little bit heavier carabiner. I have 2 daughters. They are the jewel of my life. They are the most important thing of my life. And I don't want that they lose their father. So I prefer to carry more carabiners and to come back safe at home. And then when they discover that, the federation, German federation, French federation, they decide to say to the people, at least change it every 500 hours, or at least change it every 5 years. This will avoid most of the risk. But in addition, we made this carabiner for that. It's very important.
Yeah, it surprised me when Dyneema is so much stronger. Why did the industry not turn towards Dyneema as the replacement for carabiners, and how are carabiners just trusted more than something that is available so easily on the market for everyone?
I always consider that in development of products, there's no magic solution. Okay, you have a solution for each purpose, each problem, each way to use the gear. Connect of Dyneema is good. If you are, for example, going to high mountain climbing and you are in a slope very steep, and then you need to put your harness. If you cannot open your leg strap to put it, you need to put it like your pant. Then it becomes really risky, especially if you have the crampons on. If you have a connect, it's much more difficult to open the leg strap. It's better to have a carabiner. Dyneema is very good, but it doesn't fit to all the way to use it. I don't like the people who come, like, for example, of course, I consider Coroid is the best protection on the market. But now we are launching a Permer from Skywalk, inflatable, because we have a very good relation with Jean, but also with Skywalk. We are really friends with these two brands. And Skywalk gives us the possibility to use the Permer. We use it for the leg strap harness, removable for the string and the string pack. I don't say that I consider Coroid is the best technology, but I don't say that it's good for everything. I will use Permer for this kind of use. Permer is better than Coroid. And for some other use, Coroid is better than Permer. I like to be open-minded and choose the way I like, I'm free to use. And it's the same in development of product. If you go only one way, one day you will be wrong. For example, I was not in favor of fairing and things like that. And now I discover that it's good. So we will have fairing in the future, inflatable harness. Me personally, not because I don't care. But I see discussing with Maxime, with Tim, with engineers that there's a possibility. So I change my mind and we will go this way also.
Love it, man. I think that is the ideology behind your success. Before I let you go, one last thing is this might not be a revolutionary technology, but it's caught my eye and I think it's worth talking to our audiences about it. That what's the new Neo Dyneema ripstop all about? And is that another thing that you have invented, or is it just a customization to suit the needs of paragliding? Or if you can talk a little bit about that.
It was mastered with non-weaving fabrics.
I'm not aware. I'll be thankful if you can introduce.
You have fabrics, which the name, it was fabric made in USA, and the name, I don't remember. I have a big hole in my memory. And it was non-weaving. So when you sew them, you have to tape it because it was breaking. It was waterproof, but then finally it was not so flexible. Aging was not so good. There was a lot of problems. And then some manufacturers start to work on Dyneema as a ripstop based on the materials. So we decide to go to see. There's only two companies in Europe who are able to weave Dyneema, and one is it's our partner. And we decide to visit them and check what we can do. We finally put a fabric of polyamide with the ripstop of Dyneema, the right coating on the right calendar. We discover that for the same touch of fabric, we gain 70% of the weight, or at least 50% of the weight. It's only 110 grams. Normally, this kind of fabric, to be so strong, is 150 to 350 grams. We discovered there was no elasticity. We discovered it was at least water repellent, not completely waterproof. And we discovered that we can wash it. There was a lot of interesting things. There was no marking when you put it in your harness. So we developed this material with Catalan, this brand, this manufacturer from Barcelona. The main problem of this fabric is compared to a normal paragliding rucksack fabric, it's 5 times more expensive. We have the labor cost, which is very high, and the material, which are very high. This is why our prices are a little bit higher. But if you want to sell high labor cost, you need to have the best material. You cannot make cheap. So this is why we decide to use this material, and it's one of the key of the success of Neo, I think.
Indeed, I think your brand is innovating in small things and spreading it out on larger target audience, because these things are invented, are being seen in all of your accessories, such as the harness and everything around it, and the Neo protector. The helmet is a bit of a surprise. How did a paragliding brand divulge into helmets as well? But I think on that note, Eric, we have covered everything that was listed for. On my part, is there anything that you might want to, throw your light on that we might have missed?
Just that people working in Neo, most of the people working in Neo and our athletes, like Jean-Yves Fredriksen, who climbed K2, we are working together since more than 10 years. Maxime Pinot, Tim Alongi, and there were Laurie Genovese, and all these people, they have a big passion for the mountain, and not only paragliding, mountain sports skiing and climbing. And for the people in Neo, it's the same. We all live in the same area and share sports in the mountain. We just love products and beautiful products. This is what I learned from Jean. Jean always told me a beautiful wing will always fly better than not looking nice wing. So we try to do beautiful products, and we try first to do products for us. We don't only follow the trend and the marketing trend. We try to do products we like to use. This is our main goal. So sometimes we don't follow completely the trends, but we try to be authentic in the way to design and the way to produce in Neo. This is the most important.
Love it, man. To conclude, I would say more power to you and brands like you who are planning to come up and share their ideology and the pure passion behind it. Yeah, from all of us at Paragliding Atlas, I wish you luck. Keep rocking and keep spreading the magic like you do, man. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. It was a nice time to explain that. Thanks to you.